Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? Group here, Mind Calendar Pop-Up Group. This is Tanya Dantas. I know we have a couple people that I actually don't know yet, so welcome. You're coming in on the last couple days here of the Serpent Wavespell, but I saw that a lot of you are actually very knowledgeable about the Mayan calendar, so welcome. So today we're on day 11. So you've heard me talk a little bit by now about these opposites, right? So there are 20 glyphs or archetypes. So when they're 10 apart, that's what we call opposite complementary. So today, since we're on day 11, minus 10 days would have been day 1, we're at the opposite, okay? So you heard me mention this a little bit, but the opposite of the serpent is the eagle. Okay, so today, oh my gosh, did I seriously? I'm so silly. I called it kawak. I'm so silly. It's men. There we go. All right, I had accidentally called it something else. The live, all fixed. So today is the day of the 11th tone. Is about. It's called the spectral tone, and it's about releasing and dissolving and liberating. And it's, if you think of a spectrum of light, which I have all over me, you see that it's made up of, like white light is made up of all the different colors of the rainbow. And so in order to dissolve and liberate and release, we have to see what something is made out of. And so today we're doing that by the energy of the eagle, which is about flying high and being able to see the big perspective, something that the snake can't do. That's why it's the opposite, like Quetzalcoatl, this feathered serpent god, right? It's like the merging of opposites. That's like what we're talking about with Ben, the Skywalker, of like merging the two energies and like, or being an empty channel. Today it's about, you know, letting go of what doesn't serve us, about like being on the ground like the serpent and only like kind of like going on our instinct and going for that survival and like surviving that way. We're seeing only from up high, like the big perspective. It's kind of like that colder, more objective, like third eye vision. It's not like, it's more like the higher self instead of the animal instinctual self. And so we're letting go of that animal instinctual stuff through that energy of the eagle, which is that seeing things from above, getting them done, you know, just carrying out your purpose with that, like, you know, they say like eagle, is that in Spanish or in English? Sometimes with expressions, I don't know what language it is, but it basically means like if you can either go one path or you can go the eagle version, which is like the one that's the fastest, but there might not be roads, right? So like finding the faster path from above, from that higher perspective. And so I really see that as like, I was reading a lot of stuff last night about systemic oppression and like racism and white privilege. And one of the things that I'm really interested in doing, and I've always had this interest. I actually, some of you may not know this, but I studied, right before I found out about the Mayan calendar, I was studying law. I was studying human rights in Mexico, and I was dedicated to like the indigenous struggle. And then I found out about the Mayan calendar, and then there was a lot of corruption in Mexico and in the university itself. And so I actually decided to leave that and dedicate myself to like a spiritual and healing path. And then it was like all about the Mayan calendar. But there's a lot that comes up. This could be a module in and of itself, but there's a lot that comes up with about, you know, of cultural appropriation. I'm one of those people, I could just shove this under the rug and leave it for another conversation, but I'm diving right into the mouth of the tiger, right? So there's a lot of talk about, you know, cultural appropriation, which is, you know, really important to talk about. And there's sort of like, I'm lunar, so there's sort of two perspectives, and I think there's tons in between, but like there's one perspective that I've read that it's like humans have been appropriating one another's cultures since the beginning of time. That's how, like, it's almost like pollination of cultures. But on the other hand, which I think is really, really important to notice the difference between like sharing and, you know, learning about each other's things and learning each other's habits, is that there has been in this planet like a huge disparity in power, and there's been colonialism, and it's really important to give credit and not treat people like differently than you would other, you know, just white people, right? And I think that if you're in here, well, who knows? You know what? We've all, if we're really honest with ourselves, like we all have some threads of this kind of crap in us because we were raised, you know, seeing it on television and in our politics and everything. So for me, it was really, really clear that Spectral Eagle is a lot about, for me, like, being, it's very not snake, like this is very theoretical stuff to be thinking about. It's not just thinking for myself and like, how am I gonna fill this group program, or how am I, you know, gonna, you know, just get my message out there. But it's about thinking about the bigger picture of humanity and where we're going. And I see that right now, the indigenous struggle, people of color, you know, whether that's Black, you know, Native American, Latin American, I don't like the term Latin American, but, you know, people from Mexico, people, the way they're being treated right now with Trump, it includes Muslims, it includes so many different people that there's a hashtag right now that's out that's like time's up. It's like, it's time to talk about this stuff. And so for me, this totally is true. Like, it's time to talk about it. I am nowhere near perfect, and I'm part of what I do love about myself is that I'm always willing to grow and on the growing edge and learning, and like have always been studying other cultures and fascinated. And I myself am very like mixed. I have, you know, I'm half white, like my grandparents on my dad's side are from Ukraine and Poland. They fled the World War. So there's been oppression on that side, even though they're white. And then on the other side, my mom was born and, you know, is Mexican. There's like her father was like definitely from Mexico, and her skin is a little darker. And when I've lived in Mexico, people think I'm very white. And then now that I live in Germany, people tell me all the time that I'm like, you know, oh, you look like you're from South America, even though Mexico is in North America. So I've experienced this kind of stuff, even though I'm not technically, for some people, like a person of color, or I look very white and I have white privilege and all of those things. I definitely understand, like, at least I can understand how freaking annoying it is. And I have likely not, I have not suffered it like some people do. And I'm committed to being like a true white ally and like doing my piece in breaking this systemic oppression. And I think it was important for me as I was reading some articles last night to like, it got me, you know, I've heard before that like what I'm doing by using the dream spell is cultural appropriation. And that's where it's like, well, I learned it from Jose Arguelles, who was a studious person. And you know what, like Ivan was saying in the interview we did together, like he grew the visibility of the Mayan people like so much because he wrote so many books and stuff. So to me, it's like fudge, you know, like I'll take it. Okay, like how can we give more credit? How can we, you know, be more transparent? That's why I made the module on the dream spell, and Piche like clarified this is not a straight up just indigenous calendar. However, his books, he has not charged. He doesn't charge money for the material he's offered. Now he's passed away, but he would always have it like he didn't, what do you call it? Like he didn't copyright it. Like it was all open source stuff. He wasn't like culturally appropriating, and that he was like super making tons of money from this because people didn't really pay for his, like, I didn't pay for the conferences I was at with him. And yeah, he was a professor at UC Davis and stuff. I think he made his money somehow else. And so I don't feel like I'm a bad, you know, I'm feeding the oppression by doing this, but I would certainly not leave a conversation if someone wanted to have it about this, and if I can learn and grow from it. And I think more importantly, it's about like, let's think about what kinds of stuff we use. It's got me thinking about it. It's not something new in my life, but it's like the flame of that fire has been re-sparked, because sometimes I freaking have given up because this life, you know, it's there's a lot of crap out there, and like suppression and corruption and stuff. And yeah, and now I feel that flame relit, and I wanted to bring it into this group because I wanted to bite the bullet and just like, look, there's this piece here. Like, I'm aware of it. What do you think? What do you, and it's perfect for the spectral eagle, because it's about releasing and dissolving as we look at really what something is made up of, through that like higher perspective and looking at the whole system, which is, Arguelles was a holonomist. He looked at whole systems. He included a lot of other things, not just the Mayan calendar. So it was, like I've mentioned many times, the I Ching, DNA, and many other things. So it's, I think I love that perspective of seeing like what Ivan was saying, like our story as a humanity, because we all evolved from being from Africa, from the black Madonna, you know, from the black mother, the original black mother, like the oldest figures that are, you know, skeletons. It's like we've all evolved from the same mother. And so I wish it would teach in the schools more like a history of humanity that like covers the bigger general perspective, rather than this like tiny, like, oh, in 1537 in this tiny town there was a little civil war. Like, who cares? Like, in the greater perspective, like I would love for people in the world to know that there's a difference between Mexicans and Chileans and Nicaraguans, and it's not just like people who speak Spanish are one big lump. And I'm sure people in Africa feel the same freaking way. Like, it's not just one country, it's like tons of them. And like the same in Asia. In Mexico, sometimes people call like people from Asia just Asians. Like, they don't know the difference between like the Chinese and the Japanese and like the, you know, Cambodian and Thai. And so like this kind of more world perspective of how we are one human race, because also there's a lie of race, right? Like, we're one human race. There's not many races. With like, we've lived all over and we've adapted. We have different colored skins because of that, and we have different colored eyes and hair, and we're still the human race that suffers and loves and, you know, dies. And so, and we pass on our wisdom. So allow those, my meanderings, my thoughts, my reflections to kind of inspire that eagle, that broad perspective. And what about like just living in the serpent can be released, right? Because this is the release day. It's like there's something about it that doesn't work for me to just be thinking about like, oh, I have my white privilege and I get to do my Tracy Anderson workout and my like all organic food, and I'm so stressed because of this. And like there's also like, how the heck do I contribute? Like, I'm really looking at my business, like, how am I going to address multiculturalism and racism and systemic oppression in what I do, because it really matters to me. That's my thing for today. Please let me know you watched. Please, you know, give me some love. I'm a human too, and it's like sometimes like, you know, not the easiest to just come out here. So please, you know, show me your love.